Hey guys, so I'm filming this video really late and I'm hoping I can get it up on time, but it's just because every time I sit down to film, Trish decides to just post another video and I'm like, yeah, I thought I had the hang of the situation. Quite clearly I don't, because things just keep on happening. Anyway, my social media will be in description, my Instagram, I'll try to post more on there, my Twitter and my TikTok. So if you want to follow me on those, amazing, you'll get updates on my life and things to do with YouTube. Subscribe, because YouTube does a thing where it just unsubscribes people randomly and then it breaks my heart a little bit. Like and comment for engagement because it helps to push the videos out, and yeah, let's just get into it. So we have Trish and H3, aka Ethan. I'll be referring to him as such from now on. Obviously H3 and Trish have a podcast together called Frenemies. We know this, it's a huge podcast. They release episodes one day early for their members. So if you're like a channel member, you pay like a fee and then you get the episodes early. They posted an episode that was on Gabby Hanna, and the vibe was off pretty much from the get-go. Like from the minute they started filming, I was like, ugh, something's not right here. Like something's just really off. So they start like, you know, going into everything. I'm not even going to talk about the whole episode because it's just like this video is already probably going to be really long, so I'm just like, I'm not going to get into all of it. They get to the end of the episode and they start doing the advice bit of the podcast they were going to do. So Ethan actually on Twitter asked for any like advice that you guys want to have. I'm assuming you guys watch Frenemies. I feel like everyone watches Frenemies right now, so like just anything that their fans wanted to ask and stuff like that. So this was quite clearly like a fan request. It was to have an advice column because obviously Ethan and Trish have this like thing where they call out people that are doing the wrong thing. So I think this whole like advice thing would have been quite cool to be like, from our perspective, like this is what you should do. You can listen to us, you cannot. They would probably make it really funny as well. So I was just like, yeah, it makes sense that they would have like an advice column bit. Trish then turns around and is like, this is really boring. This is like stuff that people do when they run out of ideas, and just like really trashing on the idea. And when I mean trashing, I was like, trashing on the idea. Turns out it's really awkward because the person who came up with the idea is standing right there in the room and it's her first day at the job. And she's one of the girlfriends of one of the guys that's already employed by Ethan. So it's just really awkward at that point. Anyway, Trish then obviously has a go at Ethan a little bit. Ethan then kind of like is like, I don't really understand what's going on, and Trish is like, can we just stop? I feel like I'm just gonna, you know, we just need to stop. Trish then leaves, and Ethan's like, oh, don't know what I've done wrong, but I've done something wrong. And this actually happened when they ordered Domino's. Like once again, Domino's is kind of like low-key a curse, just a little bit. Like I feel like the channel's low-key like domino cursed. So then Trish goes home, Ethan has a chat with his crew. Turns out, so what has happened was Trish actually expected Ethan to employ people that Trish wants to work with. So for example, you have obviously, I feel like people that are like defending Trish right now don't really understand the concept of like companies. So there's H3 Productions, right? Which is like the main like company at the top, and they have different series under the H3 umbrella, I guess you could say. So you have like the After Dark podcast, and you have like the Frenemies podcast, etc, etc, etc. So when he employs people for H3 Productions, that person then ends up automatically technically working for Frenemies as well, because I'm assuming they all kind of like take turns working on random stuff. So obviously Trish can't really decide who gets employed for Frenemies, because if they decide who gets employed for Frenemies, they also decide who gets employed for H3 Productions. And Trish isn't in charge of H3 Productions. Like, Trish is basically just like a co-host of a podcast under the company H3 Productions. It's as if, I don't know, like CW, right, has different TV shows they do. They have like Dynasty, they have Riverdale, a bunch of different shows. And now imagine, right, out of the blue, right, one of the actors from Riverdale is like, I am bringing in a bunch of money, so I think I deserve to decide who gets hired on to be a producer, director, etc. Like, no, you're just an actress or an actor in this whole production, but just because you bring in a lot of money doesn't mean you then automatically get to decide who gets employed and who doesn't, because you're not in charge of the whole company, you're just a part of a project under that company. So Trish is a co-host of a project under the H3 umbrella, but they don't really get to decide what happens with the H3 umbrella, and therefore they don't really get to decide what happens with Frenemies, because they don't own Frenemies. They don't own, like, if they were to obviously go their separate ways, Ethan could technically keep Frenemies and just have someone else come on, because Trish doesn't have any rights to Frenemies, and Trish doesn't really have any rights to H3 Productions. So technically, Trish is basically like an employee of H3 Productions, and employees don't really make decisions unless they are unless that's their role in the company is to make decisions. Like, unless you're like some kind of like a company director or something, you don't make decisions, you're just an employee under the company. You can make suggestions, but they don't really have to listen to them, because that's how companies work. So I feel like a lot of people really just misunderstood the whole thing. I feel like maybe Trish misunderstood the whole thing as well. I don't know. Anyway, so then we get into multiple videos. Okay, so they start talking about that. Ethan tells the crew that Trish wanted a whole new crew, essentially, just like they wanted to employ their sister and just like a bunch of people for the team. And Ethan said, absolutely not. I employ people for H3 Productions that then end up working for Frenemies, but that's because they also work for H3 Productions. Like, they work for the After Dark podcast, they work for the Frenemies podcast, they work for many different projects that they do, and he's not going to employ people just purely for the Frenemies podcast, because he likes a more concise team that ends up working on everything, rather than having like a bunch of people to delegate for different projects. I feel like that would get really confusing, so he likes to keep the same team on board for everything that they do. And he's like, it's my company, I decide who I employ. Then he basically tells the crew that Trish wanted to replace everyone, and the crew obviously gets a little bit upset at that. And then obviously with the whole like Trish trashing the idea and then the employee being right there, it was just like a lot happening. And then the crew is basically just like, if Trish doesn't want us on, then Trish can find someone else to do the vlog for them. Like, you know, like understandably so, they were like disrespected to like 2 million people, 3 at this point. So all of that happens, right? Trish gets told this by Ethan in messages, basically just like, hey, the crew's kind of feeling a little bit like, you know, it's a little bit heated here right now. Can we just like postpone the vlog for a different day? Once everything cools down, everyone kind of like understands the situation. I feel like it could be just like a much better environment to film in. Trish then posts a video basically being like, I'm quitting the Frenemies podcast, without ever like telling Ethan that they're going to film this like video about quitting Frenemies podcast. And they basically just say like, I wasn't paid enough, I didn't have any say in anything. And at first, I guess people were kind of feeling bad for Trish, purely because I feel like many people just didn't understand the situation until Ethan filmed his video. What happened was, so Trish gets 45% of the Frenemies income, and that's from podcast streams, right? Or podcast views. So that's 45%. I bet merch comes under that as well, because obviously now they came out with Frenemies merch, but Ethan gets 55%, so he gets the extra 5% for production costs, aka paying crew, studio, like any equipment. He literally just said that they spent 50k on equipment and that they needed to spend even more money on equipment, and they had to renovate a whole studio. Like, it's a lot of money to have a podcast going that is so professional and so like up there. So 5% probably doesn't even cover it. And that's what he said. He said that a lot of the time he takes money off his own pocket to fund Frenemies, just so he can pay Trish the 45% that they agreed on, because he doesn't want to be unfair. So he said, look, 45%, I get 55, 5% goes to production. But he said that a lot of times it is more than 5%, so he ends up taking money of his own pocket to fund everything going on. So Trish is like, yeah, I get 45%. And then apparently Trish asked Ethan about where the 5% was going, like to have a breakdown of 5%. Once again, Ethan doesn't really have to show what goes under that 5%, mainly now knowing that he actually spends more than 5%. So like, that's embarrassing to be like, look, I'm already like underpaying myself so I can overpay you, and now you're demanding to know how I'm underpaying myself. Like, he was like, look, I'm not going to show you what I spend money on for my company, because it's my company, right? Like, you're getting a salary, and that's it. It's as if like I used to work at a shoe shop, right? And they paid me a salary regardless of what I did, what creative magical ideas I brought onto the team. They just paid me a set salary, and I couldn't be like, actually, could you just give me a breakdown of all of your costs and spending, just so I could figure out if I'm actually being paid fairly, because I wasn't being paid fairly. But that's besides the point. It's just none of my business, right? It's a company, they have the right to set a salary. I mean, once a set salary is put in place, it's none of my business what they spend money on or how much they pay themselves. Like at that point, it's like at this point, I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs of how much it costs to produce a shoe, because those costs don't really affect me. Like, I agreed to a salary, and I have to kind of like take that salary and then maybe like negotiate another time. So I feel like he didn't really have to show them what they spent like the money on when it comes to H3 Productions and Frenemies. Anyway, so apparently Ethan also gets to keep all of the highlights monies. They have like the Frenemies highlights, which is like short clips. Apparently they make about like 40 grand a month from that, so he gets to keep all of that. Once again, a lot of the time he does go over the budget when it comes to the 5% production fee, so like I'm assuming a lot of the highlights money also goes towards production, and like it comes back into the business. He said that he pays Trish really well, you know, 6 figures of sorts. So I just feel like to be paid 6 figures to basically show up to a podcast, talk for 2 hours and then leave is a pretty good deal. And I mean, if Ethan's looking for a co-host, I'd be more than happy to take it, you know, more than happy to take it. Anyway, seriously, I just feel like this was a whole big disagreement between them, and then it ended up being public for no reason, like no reason at all. It could have just stayed private. But at this point, because the members already saw the podcast, like they couldn't have just not released it unless like they would have had to make a whole statement being like, yeah, sorry, we're not releasing the podcast, only the members saw it. Like that would just be kind of unfair, I don't know. Anyway, so Trish then films that episode. Then they film an I'm sorry episode, basically being like, I'm so sorry to the fans for doing all of this. It seems like this is all getting resolved, right? At that point, I'm like, okay, it's being resolved. Trish understands the situation now, and Ethan understands the situation. It just seems like it's coming to a good place. Because when you post a video saying I'm sorry, I'm like, oh yeah, good. Positive vibes, good. No, we then get 200,000 tweets from Trish basically showing conversations, private chats, but the private chats don't really prove anything, because in those chats, Ethan says, hey, do you want to get 45% and I'll get 55%? And Trish goes, yeah, sure. In that same screenshot though, Trish makes a comment about being really Jewy, aka making jokes about Jewish people being like stingy with money, or like, you know how there's those stereotypes around Jewish people and money. It's just disgusting, and it was a joke to do with that, and people were just really, really upset about it, because it's just like, to be invited into like a Jewish family and to have like a Jewish soon-to-be husband. And then Ethan keeps on correcting Trish regarding the like Jewish jokes that they make, and then Trish actually posted those messages themselves, so I was just like, not a good move at all whatsoever. And then we get these like wild videos, right? We get part 1, Ethan lies, part 2, Ethan lies, and part 3, Ethan lies spelt incorrectly. I love the touch. I think it was quite interesting. So in one of those parts, I feel like I just like, in my head, I joined all the parts into one. So I'm just going to be talking like, Ethan lies. I'm not going to tell you what happened in each individual part. I feel like it just made no sense for me that they were separated, because it just seemed like the video like cut off and then was posted again. But hear me out. People are noticing that on those Ethan lies videos, there are like 10 mid-rolls. So now I have a feeling, right, as a YouTuber, I know that watch time is usually not the whole video. So you'll post a video and people usually, as an average, watch about half of it. So that's not really necessarily that every single person watches half a video. It's some people watched 100% and some people literally clicked on and clicked off. And then the average becomes half, if that makes sense. But you can also see how people slowly like exit the video. It shows you like a little graph of like at minute 1, this many people quit off, and then minute 2 and so on and so forth. If you post 3 different videos, you actually end up, a lot of the times people end up watching more ads than if you just make one long video. Because if you think about it, like if you put like 10 ads in each video, right? You might end up getting like 5 ads from each being watched by most people, whereas if you post like 30 videos, some people might just only watch like 5 ads. I don't know, I feel like someone's posting more shorter videos makes you more money than posting too many long videos. Of course, if they're over like 10 minutes, all of that stuff. I'm not gonna get into all the algorithm, but like I just felt like this was like kind of like a weird move to make, considering all the mid-rolls. People are saying like, why would you, in such a weird time where you're like arguing with basically your family, start putting mid-rolls on videos and make money from this when you're already making 6 figures from the Frenemies podcast? It just all seemed really strange. People are really getting a bad vibe. But in one of these videos, Trish admits to abusing Moses, admits to hitting him.
I hit him last summer, and it doesn't matter the circumstances, like I hit him and that gets thrown in my face all the time, and it's fine, but I'm not a domestic abuser. I'm not this repeat offender, you know what I mean? Like, in both these situations, the Moses, the Gila, everything like that, like I never asked for forgiveness, and when I got it, I was forever grateful, and I did not want to up again. With Moses, like when he came back into the picture, like he didn't talk to me for a month. I was like, I don't want to fuck this up again. Like I need serious help, and I got it. And then with when the Gila thing happened, like it was getting bad, and I I was like, that's when I started really considering taking medication, and I just got on it recently, but like, because I was like, oh, there's something not right.
I can't defend this behavior. I'm so sorry. I've been a huge fan of the redemption arc. I've been a huge fan of the progress that Trish has made, and I've been a huge fan of the stuff that Trish stands for, you know, with the whole David Dobrik situation, defending Seth, defending Big Nick, defending the girls that came out, then obviously going hard at James, defending the victims, defending Kat for being basically attacked as a journalist. I just agreed with so much that they did. Then to see this go down, at first I felt bad. I was like, look, I feel bad. I feel like it was all a big miscommunication. Like, I'm hoping they get back together, but like at this point, like the jokes about Jews and then the like admitting to abuse, I was just like, look, we kind of like, these rumors have been floating around about like Moses having bruises on his arms, and Trish says it's just like, it was like a one-time thing, but like, it doesn't matter if you do it once or 100 times, like, but just the fact that you laid hands on another person just doesn't sit right with me. I just don't want to defend that kind of behavior ever. Like, I just think it's super toxic and abusive, and it's just wrong. It's like plain wrong. And like, mainly because Trish didn't say it was in like self-defense or anything like that. This just seems really like, you know. Anyway, so I can't defend the behavior from this point onwards. Like, at this point I was like, oh yeah, no, I don't agree with any of this. Ethan then also in the video mentions how they've been more than accommodating to Trisha's mental health issues. You know, the fact that whenever they did have an episode or they did have some kind of a breakdown, Ethan basically ended up being like super accommodating and supportive. And even though Trish would like really go hard on him and Ela, mainly Ela, like the fact that Trish would call Ela like a cunt and say that they're a bad parent, like, and say that they're bad parents, that they don't look after their kids enough, like basically just like saying super mean things, and Ethan would never snap back. Basically be like, look, I understand you're going through a situation right now, like I'm not gonna snap back. And then he would invite Trish back on the podcast, and they would both invite Trish back to their house and be inviting and supportive after everything. Like, I think that shows them as really good people and really like patient and just forgiving people. And for Trish to now do this and basically act like, you know, and to act like Ethan's like being stingy and trying to scam them just seems really wrong to me. Anyway, so Ethan brings this up and he's like, look, you have called my wife all kinds of derogatory terms and disgusting things, and we've been supportive throughout. We can't be supportive anymore. Like, at some point there is a limit. Ethan brings up some very good points, and it's been stuff that I've been kind of uncomfortable with watching the podcast. He says how whenever he snaps back or he says anything, he's painted as the villain, right? Like, oh, give Trish a chance, you know, all of this stuff. And he's like, but whenever Trish makes jokes about Jewish people that they shouldn't be making, or makes jokes about my Tourette's, that was his words, obviously I don't have Tourette's, his Tourette's, everything's fine, like I have to just forgive them, I can't like bring this up, I can't criticize them because obviously they'll like, you know, get angry at me. He's like, this doesn't seem like an equal relationship. He's like, I should be able to criticize them as much as they should be able to criticize me, but it just seems like they can throw stuff at me, but I can't ever throw stuff back, and now I'm being called a scammer and basically like a bad employer for not paying them enough. And he's like, I just don't understand what I did wrong. It's unfair. And he keeps on saying that it's unfair. It's an unfair relationship. And I kind of agree. You guys let me know what you think across the board. Like, I don't think, you know, you guys can have your own opinions. Just let me know in the comment section. This is a great space to have a discussion, right? In the comment section. Let's just all talk about this. I just think there's just like a lot happening here that isn't that great from Trisha's side. I feel like Ethan has been more than accommodating. I feel like Ethan has been more than supportive. I feel like Ethan has been more than fair. Like, please find me a situation where a basically actor in a TV show gets paid 45% of what that TV show makes. It doesn't happen. It never happens. Like, people get a set salary, and regardless of how well that season does, like, that's how much you're getting paid. And then you can renegotiate next season, and then whatever you negotiate next season is what you're getting. Like, regardless of what that TV show makes, that's what you're getting. And it's nowhere near 45%. Let me tell you that much. Like, nowhere near. Because the production company wants to keep money, they have to pay other people, like, they want to make a profit as well. It's a company, after all, they want to make a profit. So, like, you're never going to get a good deal like this. Like, you're never going to get this good of a deal. So to then be like, oh, unfair, I'm missing out on 5%, I don't know where it's going. Like, it's going to production costs. And usually the profit margin is a lot, like, smaller than that. So I just understand Ethan's frustrations, because it's like, what's unfair about this? I don't understand what is unfair about getting 45% of like the biggest revenue stream for the Frenemies podcast. You know, let me know what you guys think. So far, this is where we're at. As of filming today's video, we have Ethan's video, Trisha's original video, the I'm sorry video, and then the 1, 2, 3 Ethan lies videos. That's what we have. And it's just a bunch of tweets. And then admitting to abuse and just overall not very great behavior from Trish. You know, Trish keeps on calling Ethan manipulative for bringing this stuff up. But it's like, I feel like Ethan has been quiet for so long and just taking this on board and taking all this like crap, that finally he snapped. And I feel like I'm understanding of why he snapped. Like, do I think this should have been made public? No, absolutely not. But considering it already has been made public, like there's no way to take it back now. And I understand why Ethan is upset. I understand why Trish is upset. I do understand that, you know, everyone has emotions, everyone has feelings, everyone can snap. But I just feel like in this moment, I really empathize with Ethan for everything that's been going on. Let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, anything you want to comment down below, and subscribe to his videos every time something happens. So hit the bell, you'll be notified when that's happening. Social media links and the links in the description. I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.